okay, and Iris, I don't know if you're in Milan or if you're in Amsterdam.
Yeah, I'm still in Amsterdam.
Still in Amsterdam. So I'm grateful to have such an international panel today, and I'm very proud as Endelea to host these two amazing entrepreneurs and human beings as part of our mission. I mean, not only our meaning Endelea's mission, but also as Soko Kenya's mission and Renoom's mission in, having an impact and really changing the fashion industry for good. So before we start, let me just notify you that this meeting is recorded. So if any of you is not comfortable in having her or his face shown, you can just switch off the camera. But please make sure that you ask any question you feel like asking, either like directly sharing the camera or writing it in the chat session, so that the team will support us also in making sure that we answer as many questions as possible. Today, you have the privilege of listening to three women founders speaking about sustainability and transparency in fashion from three different perspectives. We're going to start with Endelea's perspective, so the sustainable brand one. When we're gonna then go to Joanna's point of view, so the ethical manufacturer, and then we're going to close up with Iris and the transparency software experience in this field. So let me start with myself and with Endelea. I'm a former archaeologist with an extensive experience in digital communication and social media, who found herself somehow working in the fashion industry, not entirely against her will, but I wasn't born a fashion enthusiast. And after spending 3 years working with a big fashion company in Milan, I decided to quit my job and to start Endelea to prove that a different way of doing fashion was possible. Endelea is an ethical fashion brand bridging Europe and Africa. Let me share a short video to get you all in the right buzz mood before I start presenting you what we do. Okay, here we are. Sorry, let me get back on the call. Okay, so as you just read, the meaning of Endelea in Swahili is literally to continue without giving up. We are bridging Europe and Africa because our collections are designed and prototyped in Milan, and then ethically made in Tanzania and in East Africa. All the sourcing of the materials is made there, all the production is made there. The final products are then shipped to Europe, to the warehouse here in Milan, and from here are shipped to the final customers in Europe and also now in the US. We reinvest 3% of our revenues in sponsoring educational programs in Tanzania, where we are official partners with the University of Dar es Salaam, and where we started our own accelerator program for emerging designers in the country. We're very proud to be able to bring a professor from the Polytechnic of Milano. Oh, the audio didn't work in the video. Okay, I didn't know that. Sorry, guys. The audio was the best part. I don't know why that happened. So sorry. I hope that is not going to happen for Joanna's video as well. Okay.
No, it was
Um,
still good. It was still good to watch.
yeah, but
It was on purpose. That's why I didn't say anything.
no, it wasn't. And I was also, like I heard it like loud in my ears. So I even thought maybe the volume was too high. I mean, sorry about that. You can find it on our website with full audio on if you're curious about that. Sorry. So I was saying, no, we were like super proud of bringing a professor from the Polytechnic of Milan teaching a full 30-hour class in ethical fashion in the University of Dar es Salaam, and to bring the designer from Dior to mentor the designers in Tanzania. We do a lot of activities at that level, but our impact is much more than that. And when we say that we are an ethical fashion brand, and when we write that we put people at the center, it means we literally mean it. It means that we're paying our tailors in Tanzania 116% more than the average salary of the country, which means that we're paying them like marketing managers, basically. We're offering free meals, free transport, free health insurance for them and their children, free English classes. We decided together where the workshop should be, making sure that it's in an area of the city that is easy to reach and safe for everyone. And we really work in a way that starts from the people. And that's the reason why we were born. We were born in 2018 as a pilot project. We registered the company here in Italy at the end of 2019. As a matter of fact, we just turned 4 years old last week. We registered an innovative startup and a benefit corporation in Milan, thanks to you. And we were able to register the local company in Dar es Salaam at the beginning of 2021. Last week, we also received our B Corp certification for both companies, the Italian one and the Tanzanian one, and we're super proud of that as well. And let's say that if the pilot project in 2018 was producing 300 pieces per collection and working with retailers, the Endelea that you saw here, that you see here today, is working with 17 tailors in Tanzania and is producing an average of 3,500 pieces per collection per year. So we grew a lot. We're doing a lot, and among all the things that we're doing, we are very proud to have started this adventure with these two incredible entrepreneurs, in making sure that our impact is even broader in East Africa, and also making sure that we are accountable for everything that we do across our supply chain. For winter 23, we indeed started working with Soko Kenya, which produced I would say half of our collection in Kikambala, increasing the amount of tailors, let's say, that Endelea works with from the original 3 to 17 to over 150, and also ensuring a very high quality and a very high social and environmental impact across that part of the supply chain as well. And at the same time, by partnering with Renault, we made sure that every piece of our collection is now traveling across the supply chain and arriving in our shop here in Milan and in the online shop with a digital product passport and a QR code that allows consumers and the general audience to know more about our story, but not only that, about the people, the single tailor who crafted that specific item, about the number of times that item can be worn, and so the price per cost of that item. People can access through the QR code and through the widget on our website all the touch points of the supply chain, getting to know who's the producer of the buttons, who's the producer, of the zippers, of the fabrics, all the compositions, of course, that are behind every fabric, and in a way that really allows us to be fully traceable, fully transparent, and then so fully accountable for everything, every decision that we make, and everything that we are putting in our clothes in a way. We're very proud of these two projects, and being here today allows us also to talk about the decisions that an entrepreneur makes when trying to keep the company alive and thriving, but also when we as ethical entrepreneurs have a responsibility in showing to other stakeholders in the fashion industry that being sorry, I get distracted by the comments. In ensuring that every other stakeholder in the fashion industry can be sustainable and has to implement sustainable behaviors across their own supply chains. The reason why we decided to work with Soko Kenya and with Renown is not only to, of course, prove that it is possible to be sustainable and prove that every choice that we make as a fashion brand matters. That is also a matter of deciding to work not only with partners, not only with businesses, but with the people who are behind the companies and behind the labels. I got to meet Joanna, and because we're doing something very similar, we share the same values, and we share also the same love for Africa, of course. And I got to meet Iris because she's another entrepreneur based partly based in Milan, and sharing with me the same network of women founders. And so when I decided that Endelea should embark on these two journeys in a better and broader sustainability in East Africa, and in a better and broader transparency of our supply chain with our customers, I not only decided that, but I decided to work with people I admired and to work with people I shared a lot of values with. And I think that is important as well. And that somehow matters when it comes to be sustainable, because you need to, of course, to share the vision even before sharing, the business plans and the deadlines and all that. I think it's important that as a brand and as the owner of a platform, we are all responsible for amplifying the other brand's messages, and we're all responsible to make sure that our approach is holistic, and that we, in a way, we stand up for the role that we have. We have this role not only towards other brands in showing them that transparency is achievable and sustainability is achievable, but we're also responsible towards the other stakeholders like suppliers, customers, our own team members, our own investors, the journalists, and all the people we talk to, because at the end of the day, we're all consumers. We all have a power. All our purchases matter, and so again, I think by working together with other brands and by making sure that every action, every decision is shared with transparency and honesty, and full accountability, we're setting an example, and we have that kind of responsibility right now. I don't know if all I shared makes sense, resonates in a way with you who are listening. I don't know if you have any question, if there is anything you feel like adding to what I shared. I don't know if I missed already questions. Iris was, of course, pointing out that all the information I was mentioning are available both through the QR code that is directly shown on our clothes, but also through the widget that is with every single product on our website, of course. If there's no specific question for Endelea and for myself, we can move on to Joe and to talking a little bit more about what it means being a sustainable manufacturer in Africa. Of course, I know a little bit about that as well, but I'm very curious to hear your perspective, Joe.
Thank you. So it'd be great to start with a video. I think Sophie's ready to start with that. in the hope that we've got audio.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
want.
Definitely better if you do that, Sophie, because my audio probably, yeah.
I'm wondering if it's something to do with the settings of
No,
the
yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, to share the audio, you should like show the video through like a Google Chrome tab. If you want, I can share it because I have it open here.
Oh, that would be great, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me know if you can hear it.
In 2009, I moved to Kenya with the idea and hope that I could build a clothing factory that was founded and rooted in making a positive difference to its employees. At Soccer Kenya, we create beautiful, quality clothing that we're proud of and that we want our customers to be proud of too. Our clothes are created within a sustainable and ethical life cycle. I am passionate about creating meaningful, sustainable, quality relationships with brands. We are passionate about mutual success and growth for us and the brands that we work with. Thank you, Sarah. So I thought it'd just be helpful to see some pictures rather than just seeing my face. So you can kind of visualize what I'm going to be talking about. So as you can hear from my voice, presumably, I'm from the UK, and I moved to Kenya nearly 15 years ago. So prior to being in Kenya, I was based in London. And growing up, I always had this kind of two things that I was really passionate about. One was that I loved the fashion industry. I was fascinated by the supply chain, by fashion weeks, by how trends were created. And I also had this real sense of social justice. The fact that I was born into a middle-class white family in the UK and how that just felt so unfair that I just happened to have arrived into this family with the opportunity for a great education and a kind of a secure livelihood. And growing up, I never really saw the two coming together because at the time there was very little talk in the fashion industry around kind of supply chains and the background. And I did a fashion and textiles degree. And at the end of it, for my dissertation, I decided to look at kind of the story behind clothes. So at the time, fair trade tea and coffee and chocolate were entering the shelves, and being farmers of the cocoa, for example, were being talked about. And I thought, well, I wonder, you know, what the information is around cotton farmers, around people making clothes. And I realized there is so little transparency. And at the time, especially, it was all very high level. So a consumer and even a brand had very little kind of connection to or power really around understanding how clothes were made, especially smaller brands that had lower, smaller orders. And so I started to think around what would it look like to create a clothing factory, to offer brands with a space where they had complete transparency of who made their clothes, create a connection between the people that make the clothes, the brands, and the consumers. So nearly 15 years ago, I moved to Kenya very naively, thinking that I could try and give this a go. And I started with 4 people, and we grew organically. We learned together. and those people still work with me. We now have a team of 150 in the factory. And the values that we started with are still very much guide all our decisions today. So, and the question is, how can we use fashion as a force for good? What does being an ethical employer for me look like? And I don't feel like there's ever an answer to that. I don't feel like we're going to reach a goal and sort of tick a box that we've done it. I feel like we're always learning, and we'll continue to learn and improve. And some of the ways that what that looks like for us, as I say, we're on a journey, but what it looks like for us right now, kind of 15 years on, is that we pay a living wage, that we provide tea and a hot meal every day, free childcare to preschool children, access to quality medical care, private pension scheme, opportunity for employees to move up be promoted. Kind of traditionally in clothing factories, you arrive on day one and you do the same thing for your whole career. So you've maybe sewn a shoulder seam for 15 years. And so you really don't ever kind of gain additional skills. We also do quite a lot of training around financial literacy, around entrepreneurial skills. We encourage our employees to look at, can you have that side hustle? We also support in sexual reproductive health and rights training, and lots of different areas of training. And there are always new things that we're learning that we're bringing in. We also have a charity that was started 11 years ago. And the charity delivers 3 projects. So one is our training that I've talked about that we do for our factory team, but also in the community. We also have a sewing training school called the Stitching Academy. And we started that because we really wanted to support people in our local community to have skills to go and get a job or start their own business. So they receive the skills they need to get a job in a clothing factory or start a small tailoring business, alongside life skills. So the same training that we offer to our team. So they have the skills they need to work out how to create a budget, how to create a business plan, basic computer skills. And then we also have a social enterprise called the Kujua Initiative. And Kujua means knowledge in Kiswahili. And with that, it's a period poverty initiative. We take off-cut fabric, so cotton fabric waste, from the factory floor and make reusable sanitary pads that are donated to girls in school alongside training. So we work with 8 schools surrounding our factory on a 1 year after school club for girls and boys and teachers and parents. And our aim with that is that statistically in Kenya, around the age of puberty, girls' attendance starts to drop, therefore their grades start to drop, and transition to secondary school drops. And so our hope is that by supporting them with these period products, and also confidence and knowledge in their bodies as they change, and also understanding and empathy for their male peers, teachers, and parents, we can support girls and therefore the next generation of women to have a better chance of a good job in the future. So that's kind of a bit about us, but I wanted to talk about, Francesca, you'll tell me when I need to stop talking, but we'll talk about our kind of relationships with brands. So for me, what's really important is that we are kind of shifting currently it feels like a pyramid with the supply chain and the people making the clothes at the bottom with no voice. And we're wanting to kind of completely pull apart that and change the shape of it and look at really, rather than this traditional sort of supplier brand relationship, that I'm passionate about building partnerships. I'm passionate about working with brands where there's a mutual commitment to growth. There's a mutual commitment to success and thriving on both sides, and shifting this kind of traditional value chain, which is why it's such a privilege to work with Endelea, with such shared values around it being much more than money, much more than kind of the stress of a new collection, but a much more holistic view. And I believe that, you know, us in our relatively small ways, proving things are possible. You know, each of us today are, I think, aiming to prove that a different model of how clothes can be produced is possible, and it's done in a way where each entity is thriving. And so it's just a real pleasure to be here and talk about this stuff that I just feel really, really passionate about. And I know there's time for questions now if anyone wanted to ask anything, but also later. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you for sharing your story and your experience. And of course, I guess I can ask you a million questions and we can spend the rest of the hour, you know, talking about our experiences in East Africa. But I'm happy that there is a raised hand between the audience. I lost the name.
I think it was
someone just joining. Yeah, someone just joining. Sorry about that. I mean, I don't know if someone from the audience feels like asking something to Joe, or if maybe it's better we continue with also Iris, and then we like move the conversation as a dialogue between the three of us and the audience, of course. Yeah, okay, so let's do that.
Sure.
So Iris, the floor is yours. I mean, you have like a lot of things that you can share with us regarding transparency and digital, and how digital and tech are helping and shaping the industry, and or at least are helping the industry in being more accountable. So please share the perspective of Renew.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just also very beautifully fits with what you both have introduced a conversation about, right? So we had Francesca, you on the brand side and wanting to bring some values towards the final consumer, and Joanna on the other side, sort of building the infrastructure in the back end that makes that possible as well. And so what we're doing with technology is really sort of using the technology to actually empower this sort of dynamic with brands and a supply chain that it's supported with actions like Joanna is currently doing. Renew is born really as a technology because of that. I'm one of the co-founders of Renew, and my background is actually coming from enterprises and corporates in the fashion space. So actually seeing the other side, and as a consumer sort of feeling like I couldn't have access to this information as directly as possible. So I didn't know where the products were coming from and who actually made them. So really the mission of Renew in itself was really to utilize this technology to unlock this transparency and really understanding where the product is coming from, as we want to have this new sort of shift in the supply chain, in the fashion industry overall, where it's not only about the final piece and about the brand, but also how that piece came to life. Yeah, we felt technology had a really important key role to play in this. So how do we do that? And really our goal is to reach 1 billion people by 2030, together with the companies that we work with, and the mission overall of the industry, also seeing where regulations, which is an important part, which I'm going to touch upon also later, is going towards. It's really big, but we also feel it's now the time for this to happen. So first of all, what do we feel like technology can do? Because it's also this conversation, you know, about transparency, about understanding where products are coming from, and bringing in an important part, which is a scientific basis into the conversation. It's actually yeah, really easy to say and also difficult to do. And to be honest, when we work with companies like Endelea, the technology at use, it's perfect. I'll also show you now, which I'm very, very excited about, to show you the example of Endelea, which Francesca, I think you've been too quiet about it, but like you guys also did an amazing job, and there's so much, like it's so beautiful to see the back of that product, and it's so easy to actually bring this information about, and that's really also the reason why Renun started as a company, really to make those stories come to life and bring them back to life. But there is also an important component, which is the scientific evidence, the data, and this is one part of the journey also that we're going through with Endelea, like sort of really helping the brands and the company capturing that data, which could be a very daunting experience and very sort of yeah, a nice thing to do. But at the end of the day, it adds that strength and that capability to really have a backbone of information that can really then prove. Because it's easy sort of to say, yes, this is our supply chain, tell the story, but the story needs to also be backed with evidence, and also backed with data, and then portray this data in a way that it's nice to see and easy to understand. Yeah, this is the example of Endelea. I also shared in the chat the link to the website. You can see it also yourself, how it looks like inside of the e-commerce. So, and this is of course the output of all the work. And today also we have in this group chat, in this chat, we have the Sarah, who has been working a lot with Endelea's team to bring this to life. But there's a lot of work that happens in the back end on validating this data, making sure that this data is proved, and really creating a structure on which each claim that a company is making and each piece of the story can actually be backed up by this proof. And then of course the story can come to life, and the story then can showcase exactly yeah, how the product is made. This is an example of a QR code of Endelea. You can actually also scan one to see it yourself. What I really loved about working with Endelea is actually also the richness of material that they had from their supply chain. I love this part where you can see the faces of every person that actually was part of the production. And I always get Francesca comments on how deep you actually guys have decided to go also towards really bringing this transparency to life, even with the price transparency part, really showcasing also on videos some example and pieces of really who made the product. And I think this is what really technology can be used for, like really bringing the story that we actually told today to life on each single garment and adding value to that specific garment. Maybe one last piece that I can add is the fact that this is what in our feeling, and always try and do is think about how what we're doing, it's actually that something that can be scaled, because of course when we talk with people like Francesca, and also the SOCO sort of values, they're all aligned with the view and what we all think that probably should be the standard. But making that the standard in our current world, it's not that easy. So an important part which we're very excited about is of course regulatory demands, which are going to sort of pressure companies to bring this transparency to life. And we think that, and we notice, because as you can see, a company like Endelea, for sure, it's a company that has the most interest whatsoever to actually bring this information to life, because they have an important story to tell. But sometimes supply chains is not something that companies actually want to share. And this is actually something that with technology we're seeing now to be changed. If it's not changing immediately, it's just a moment of deferral. There are a lot of non-compliance risks out there, and a lot of new regulations that are coming up. So yeah, we really see sort of technology at the same time now providing this infrastructure of making this shift happen, whether people actually want it and companies want it, because it's part of their values, like what we saw here today, or because it's actually something that the regulatory environment is going to require them to do. And of course, with more transparency, we're also hoping that we see an interest of companies going up to actually have what is transparent, actually make sure that what's transparent now actually looks good, and it's not just hidden under a carpet. Yeah, so this is a little bit about us and the role that we have to play as a technology. And yeah, in general, we're very, very excited about what's coming up, both on the regulatory side, but indeed working with companies like Endelea and their whole supply chain, where we can bring the stories to life in a fun and engaging way.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you for sharing your perspective. I mean, I don't know if you have more slides or.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Okay, I saw the other lines over there. No, thank you. I mean, there's a lot of clapping emoji coming up. I think your perspective on the industry is really unique, and of course more holistic and more, you know, from above compared to mine and Joanna's, because of course we're doing things in the supply chain, and you are the one that has, you know, a perspective on the supply chain, plural, of the different brands you're working with. So for sure, you are more aware than us about the mega trends that are happening in the industry, and maybe you can also share with us what you think are the big things that are coming up next. I mean, you showed us a little bit about how compliance and, you know, and the different legislations in the EU are kicking in within the next years. How do you think that is going to change? Like, what is the next future looking like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just actually an interesting question. What we currently see in the short term, it's a lot of resistance. We see a lot of resistance because, I mean, everyone likes change, but nobody wants to change. And so whenever it's, of course, easier, as with Joanna and you, to start something from scratch, the way you sort of have how you thought about it and then you went for it and you made it happen, versus now there's a lot of companies that have to actually transition, and so they have to actually rewrite a lot of the things that they've been doing until now and do them in a different way. So, you know, there are a lot of companies today that, although they might have to and already need to comply to regulation, that they have decided not to, for example, just because transparency is something that scares them so much, that yeah, it's still something that yeah, they're pulling away from. And at the same time, we see a trend versus companies that sort of have talked about sustainability for a long time, that actually are now seeing transparency and as an important part of telling the story. Because yeah, if that was already part of your brand and already part of what your intentions were, giving and having tools to make that clear and make that open, it's actually something that yeah, it really puts the backbone now into what a word and what an intention is, and actually putting an action to connect to it, with the possibility to drive accountability, and the possibility to have a structure. But and I think we also have a question. I don't know, Francesca, if we like take it as well.
Yeah, we do. We can take it, of course. I mean, we have this 15 minutes remaining just for you guys. I mean, you heard the three stories, you heard the three perspectives. They are complementary, of course. So feel free to ask anything regarding the supply chain, the manufacturing, the brand, or the digital passport of products and technology, and how technology is helping or, you know, putting in a hard spot brands at the moment. So Julia, you can start.
Sure, thank you. And first of all, amazing presentations and congratulations to you all for doing such a good job individually and together. The great thing about doing this together is that now you are like way stronger than just the three of you individually summed up, right? There's a lot of synergies now, and I think so. Congratulations for that. I think one element that I see in this that is incredibly powerful, and it's I think the future, but it's already quite in the present in the finance world, is if data come together with sustainability, and sustainability broadly intended, so social impact, and environmental impact, everything. So sustainability broadly intended and data. So exactly what you are doing collectively here can have an incredible power from a finance perspective, because there's a lot of new financial instruments that allow startups to actually obtain financing, like loans and things like this, at a favorable conditions, because as long as the impact that those startups or that those companies have is measurable. So can you see the power that I see in something like Renun together with something like Soko or Endelea, or the three things combined, and just saying, oh, by the way, I am Endelea, I'm going to this impact investor, like I want to get some capital from this impact investor. This impact investor is willing to give me a loan at 10% of interest rate, except that if I can prove the impact that I'm having on different levels. So there have to be KPIs, they have to be measurable, they have to be traceable. So you see the importance of things like Renun. Maybe that interest rate can go lower, as long as within a year I can prove that, for example, in my supply chain, I have achieved X, Y, and Z. This is just one example, but the number of financial instruments that are exploring these new areas is incredibly growing, and way faster than the past. And so I just wanted to highlight the power that is at the moment in your hands on that dimension, your hands collectively. And the second thing that I would say is I see a lot of potential in companies coming together like what you've done today. It's way more than just it's not small in itself, but it's way more than sharing your knowledge and your skills with us. It's you may have way more influence at a lobbying level. So all the regulation you're talking about, who knows, maybe the future is for companies like you and us to come together and maybe lobby for something together, in some of the countries we're working with and stuff. So I see these two great, interesting things for the future and open for debate.
I love that.
Thank you, Julia. No, I agree with that a lot. I mean, of course, our voices are stronger when they're together, and in policy making, of course, and trying to have a role that links back to the role I was talking in my introduction, that we all have as sustainable brands. I mean, I'm a sustainable fashion brand, but Joanna has a sustainable manufacturing brand, and Iris has a sustainable tech brand, and all three of us as individuals and as entrepreneurs have a role and a responsibility. But when we work together, of course, we can maximize that messages that we're trying to put out there in a way. And we hope, I really do hope, that what you shared about loans specifically, I mean, asking for a friend, I really do hope that will work in the future. That impact will drive, different policies also from, banks and finance stakeholders and governments. And again, that's why I was so interested about what Iris shared about legislations and governments, because the feeling I had for many years I mean, many years. I've been in this business for 6 years only, but the feeling often is that you don't get an award, you don't get a prize for being sustainable. No, the fact that we are trying to open the path, the fact that we are trying to set an example is much more appreciated by the bottom of the pyramid and the people and the customers. And that, at the end of the day, is what matters to us, because we're doing this for the people, but is more difficult, at least from the brand perspective, that we get that kind of impact on the upper part of the pyramid and the governments and the legislators. I don't know if maybe, Iris, your perspective is different, being you at a different level of the pyramid yourself. But I guess, Joanna, maybe you share my vision on this. It's like sometimes we have the feeling that we're doing all the hard work at our expenses, that we're making choices that are expensive for small brands and for like new entrepreneurs, and we're still making those choices because we believe in those values that we shared, but often this is not, adequately rewarded from the other side. But I guess things are going to change in a way that will make it compulsory to be like us. So we don't get a prize, but at least, I mean, who is not like us, we get a fine. I mean, that is what the scenario looks like.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
And definitely what and sometimes what happens is that we think that values and things, the way you're, and I loved also what Julia mentioned, because sometimes it feels right that some things are intangible and you cannot measure them, but actually, if you think about it, also the system that we've built around the financial system, the way our society works, it's not like it's a system that it's entirely and totally separated from the human side of who we are. And so sometimes it takes some time, but it does catch up. So sometimes now what's also interesting, and this is something that we've started to see very recently, is that if you look at also really large brands in their financial reports and in their shareholder presentations and reports, is that you can actually see that a lot of finance teams have started to calculate also the risks of not actually implementing sustainability changes and sustainability transition throughout their supply chain might have in the future. We're talking here, for example, about climate change risks on materials. So if a company as huge as the corporates that a lot of people are used to buy from, they don't differentiate and then they don't prepare the risks that are ahead of them, they might end up also in pricing going up in their supply chain on current materials that are part of their financial model at this moment. So there is a lot of things happening, and a lot of shifts that are happening that sort of, as you mentioned, right, it starts with what our guts and what we feel it's right to do, but then it catches up on actually something that we can measure, and then ends up also rationally being the right thing, the correct rational things to do.
Yeah, that is true. And thank you, Jordan, for sharing the link to decarbonizing fashion. So if anyone wants to deepen that, I don't know if, Jordan, you have any comments you want to add regarding this.
Yeah, I can hop in briefly. This is just a link that I found. A friend of mine works at this company, and it goes into talk about some measurable insights about strategies that this company is doing to make an impact on sustainability. And you were just talking about, how sometimes it's hard to measure the impact of that, and the work that we're doing. And it was just something that I thought of while you were talking, and I want to share that sometimes that is something that we can measure and can add value to both the consumer and the producer.
No, thank you. No, and I do agree with you. Of course, I mean, Renoon itself proves that there's a lot that we can measure. We just went through the whole due diligence from B Corp, and I can tell you there's a lot that you can measure I mean, under all the pillars of sustainability, which is not only the environment as most consumers think, or I mean, the workers, which is what Joanna and I think. It's also governance, which is something Julia was somehow referring to, and Iris as well. And it's also, of course, the clients, which is something that we often forget, but they're part of the movement, they're part of the change, and they are a stakeholder, just like the workers, no? So there's so much that we can measure, and so much that we can be accountable for, which is great. As Iris said before, for people like us, it's only, you know, a booster to do even better, to do even more. And it can be very scaring for other companies. And there's a reason why only 3% of the companies that on a global scale apply for B Corp can get the certification at the end of the process, no? So this, on the brighter side, shows us that, I mean, sky is the limit. There's a lot we can improve on. And I mean, joining forces like we're doing is also allowing each of the single companies in the joint venture to, I mean, reach those goals and be like closer to meeting those goals. And I can tell you, we got like high marks, high scores in community, not only because of the huge impact that we have in Tanzania directly, but also because we partnered with a lot of local realities like Joe. But I mean, the B Corp took into consideration 2022 when we worked with other manufacturers in Tanzania, other ethical projects. So for real, this is not, you know, one of those sentences that you find in the chocolate boxes, but it's real. Like if you join forces, you are in a way stronger and more measurable, and you know, also the KPIs that you obtain are more relevant and more interesting from, you know, a finance perspective or a legislator perspective. So I really do believe in that, and thank you for sharing the link, because again, sharing resources, sharing knowledge should be part of our being sustainable in a way. I want to, if nobody has another question, I just wanted to ask something to Joe very quickly, from, you know, from the manufacturer's point of view, and how it is to work with brands, and how like brands are interacting with you and choosing Soko Kenya over another less ethical manufacturer in another part of the world. How does that relationship work out? And how do you see it going in the near future?
Yeah, so I always say, you know, if you're looking for fast and cheap, then there are plenty of places to go, and that's not us. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's all about building the partnerships and the mutual kind of commitment to growth and success. And so that's why brands come to us. They come to us because they want to feel really proud of where their clothes are made, and they want to kind of build that relationship with us and come and visit and have lunch, you know, in the canteen with all of us. And so and it's brands that have their eyes open already, and because if you're not there, then we don't make sense for you. And so but as we've been talking, it does feel like there's more recognition that brands need to be thinking about more of these things, and that just an audit from a factory isn't enough. And so we are having more conversations with brands that don't necessarily have the kind of values necessarily embedded in, but they want to move towards that. And whether that's about compliance or about, you know, within every company, there are people who feel, you know, I'll talk to a lot of buyers, you know, in a bigger company that really feel passionate about what they can do to shift the company they work for towards more, I struggle with the words ethical and sustainable, but more, let's say, conscious sort of more aware, more of an aware supply chain. And I feel, I started this 15 years ago, and we were, I was saying all of these things now, and feel like actually it's only really, I'm reaching a much bigger audience these days than I did in the early days, because there's much more conversation going on in the mainstream industry, rather than just kind of brands that were founded in that way, brands that are realizing that they have to pivot now, and that's really exciting. Definitely. And I'm excited that we're here and we've been doing it and we know what we're doing, and that we're ready to support brands on that journey. And part of that also is that it looks different, and I think that's what's really important as well, is that the fashion industry can't stay the same whilst improving. Things need to change in terms of the terms of how kind of traditional fashion brands deal with suppliers just isn't sustainable if we're going to do it in a way where the people producing the clothes are paid a living wage, for example. There needs to be a deposit paid, etc. So I feel like I'm seeing lots of shifts which feel exciting, and it's about going on a journey with brands through that, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think you gave us the perfect conclusion to this panel and to this webinar, because I think again, there's a lot to be worried about, but also there's hope, and there's a conversation that keeps becoming more and more populated and more interesting. And of course, there will be always challenges, and we know, like, being on the front line, what they are. But again, when and if, but let's say when the big brands and the majority of the fashion industry and the fashion stakeholders will be on the front line with us, of course, some costs, some dynamics, some processes that have been going on this way for a long time will change, and the change will also be less expensive and more part of the everyday life of the consumers on one side, and of brands and all the supply chain stakeholders on the other. So I think if we have this panel in 10 years from now, I really do believe and hope that the situation will be different. Compliance will force some to do so. Consciousness from others will also help. Us setting the example and showing that it is possible, that you don't need millions, that it starts from one decision, from one gesture. We also can contribute to that. And definitely the word that you said, Jo, journey, is what it is. It's a journey. Sustainability is not reachable. Full sustainability is an utopia in a way, but like having brands and stakeholders at all levels being committed in this journey, and in taking one step after the other, so that slowly sustainability, and I mean responsibility and transparency, and all those keywords that we hear so often in our lives, can be keywords that are in everyone's life, and can really pave the way for a different way to do fashion. Because otherwise we're just selling clothes that are contributing to pollution, and they're not building any value anymore. So we need to make sure that there is value behind everything. Thank you. Oh no, Iris, please say this out loud. I don't want
I don't know. Well, no, just replying to Alessandro. Thank you so much also for the compliments. Yeah, I mean, also kudos to Endelea's team, because it was quite some work to do, that we started at least, like, I think, 6 months ago, to have this live. And yeah, we currently, there are dozens of brands already live with this type of solution. So far today, actually, we're really proud with what also Endelea achieved, because it's one of the most engaging final consumer sort of the way some of this information is shared and the depth of that information, it's actually quite significant. There are plenty of others. So also feel free to just check our website and our LinkedIn for more. So but yeah.
Yeah, please, everyone who has more questions like technical ones and specific questions for for Iris, for Joanna, for myself, please do reach out via LinkedIn or via emails. I guess our teams already shared some links here and there in the chat. It was a pleasure having you all here with us today. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Iris, for your time and for your insights. Thank you, Julia, and all the other people who took the time, to be with us, to comment, to ask questions. I don't know, Alessandro, if you feel like sharing something. I don't even know if we have the time though, or if Google is gonna cut us. But anyway, this has been very insightful, and I'm so happy to hear that people are interested in this topic more and more. As we were saying, this is a journey. It's great to walk this journey together. You'll be hearing more from Endelea and Soko Kenya in the upcoming future. We're starting a new production together. I'm traveling to Tanzania in 10 days from now, and we embark on a new adventure with Jo and her team, and at the same time with Iris, of course. We will make sure that every new product that will come out of our factories in East Africa will be labeled, will have all the information. We will work more and more to enrich and deepen the information and the level of the dialogue that we can have with our customers. So again, this is possible because we work together, and I'm very grateful for that and grateful for today. Thank you all. Thank you, Iris. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Francesca, for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Grazie.
much.
Ciao. Ciao.
Grazie, Fonteni Sana. Ciao, Joe. Ciao, Iris. Ciao, everyone. Bye-bye.